Oh, Delia and Jason, welcome. I just would like to have a conversation with you around your knowledge of spelling and learning spelling in the context of your writing program and in the classroom. Now, as a parent, if I came to you and asked you, why does my child not have a spelling list? They're really not great at spelling and I'd like for them to get better at it. And when I was younger, I used to always have a spelling list. It's something that I can help them with as a parent, and we just don't seem to see spelling lists at the moment. Can you help me? Can you answer that for me?
Well, I'm glad you've asked, Sarah, because we've just come back from a spelling seminar with with a woman who spent many years of her life researching how kids learn to spell, and I'll share with you this little diagram, which is something that sort of explains why lists aren't so good for every learner. This is a bell curve. So a bell curve is a way of mapping a population, if you like, and we've got in here a population of learners or kids or people, all of us. And down this end of the bell curve are the people who learn really well just with a really good visual memory. They learn by sight, and they call them Chinese processors because in the Chinese language, when they're learning to write, every word has its own picture. This end are the Phoenician processors, and the Phoenician alphabet is the one we use, A to Z, and the Phoenician people invented it. Phoenician processors learn best by thinking about the sounds in words and in our language. And most people are down this end. Some people, lucky people, are down this end and they can just look at words, it goes in and they remember how to spell them, but that's not very common. And kids who learn this way are lucky because they're usually very good spellers without much extra help. This end is the way most of our kids spell. In fact, the reason it's a bell curve is because most people are in the middle. We can learn some by sight and some by sound, but lists of spelling words, really good for these people, and as you can see there's not very many of them. The curve is small at this end. So Chinese processors will learn great off lists. Most of us don't.
Okay, well that explains some, but I am concerned that, as a parent, when I look at their writing book, for instance, or I see any of their writing, they don't tend to really focus on spelling as their writing, and that concerns me because I find it really difficult to actually read their writing. So can you explain to me why there's not more of a focus on spelling during the writing process?
During the writing process, we encourage the children to create an idea and then they have to record it. The idea behind that is not to do proofreading and editing as they go, which capital letter spelling, all those final items are part of. We need the work to be recorded as they're thinking it, and we actually try to encourage the children to get it all on the page so that they can go with the flow, all their ideas are recorded, and then once the work is completed, then we go through and we look at things like proofreading and editing for the spelling, capital letters, the structure of it, make sure it's got all the parts that we're looking for, and because not all of the pieces that we create, or the children create, are published, not every piece of work has that proofreading and editing done as part of it. And I was going to say something else and I completely went there.
That's right. I think you've summed it up well. Yeah. Not every piece of writing goes through the full process to proofreading and editing. So if you look in a child's book, you'll see some which has corrections and some writing which doesn't.
And even though I've just remembered what it was. The other thing is that even though there's no teacher writing in the book, doesn't necessarily mean to say that the child hasn't been given feedback on their work. Because quite often there's a lot of discussion around the work that's created, and so even though there's no teacher writing in the book, there's quite often conversations around the structure of the writing and all parts of the piece that they're creating.
The ideas, the language,
Right. Well, that helps with my next question, because that is sometimes my child comes home and when I look at their work, I'll say, "Oh, your teacher hasn't marked it, and you've got terrible spelling." So, and then my child will say to me, "My teacher told me the spelling's not important."
So that's a bit of a mixed message, because of course spelling's important, but on the day that writing might have been done, we were learning to include all the parts that we want in a piece of writing, or we're including ample description or good adjectives. So we'll have a different focus depending on what we're doing in class that day, and because there are so much to learn in writing, it's not always a focus of spelling or a focus of proofreading and editing. So if a child comes home and says, "Oh, the spelling's not important," it's because that wasn't our focus for the day. The things we were asking them to do, or the important things, were something else, like the structure or the language.
And again, the spelling and proofreading and editing comes at the end of the piece as part of the publishing.
Ah, thank you for your time.
Thank you.